Back to Making Room. We are so excited to have you here. I cannot believe that we are on the other side of Labor Day. Full disbelief. New England decided that it's officially winter. So I am cozied up over here. You'll see me sipping a cup of tea. I have a blanket on, in denial, but we're going with it. Today we have Carlos Whittaker, and I am so thrilled to bring you this conversation. If you have followed him like me and my family and close friends, you know that he has been up to a lot of exciting and really intriguing things that we're going to dive into today. But first, I want to give you a note from our sponsor. So Feast and Fettle, if you have followed them at all, if you are busy parents, they want to come alongside you this season. If you are trying to figure out how to manage your time, get healthy food on the table for your family, pack your kids' lunches, head to the sports games, all of the things, they want to come alongside you and make it healthy, delicious, and easy. If you are in New England, you don't need to compromise home cooking or health at all this season as you feed your family. Head on over to feastandfettle.com for $50 off your first week with code GATHER, and they want to support you as you parent, love, and lead well. Well, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Hi, I'm Katie, a hospitality educator and the host of Making Room by Gather podcast. I am set to see our communities get back to the table through hospitality, but it wasn't always this way. My husband and I moved to Thailand, and through it, I experienced some loneliness. And with it, I was given a choice to sit back and accept it or to do something about it. And for me, that meant two things: that I needed the healing to learn how to accept an invitation and the confidence to know how to extend one. Through this process, I developed some of the richest and deepest relationships of my life. Through Making Room by Gather, you will hear conversations from myself and experts in the areas of food, design, and relationships. You see, there are countless things trying to keep us from the table. But can I tell you something? Take a seat, because you are ready. You are capable. You are a good host. Okay, Carlos, let's do this.
Let's do this.
I'm talking about our kind of like cold wave in New England, but I heard
Yes.
in Nashville, you guys are just coming out of a heat wave.
Yes. No, I literally set my alarm for 6:30 this morning because I looked on the weather app last night and it said it was going to be 61 degrees outside. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have not felt 61 degrees. So I literally woke up just to walk outside and sit there and drink my coffee.
Oh my God. But did you love it? Like, do
Oh
you
my
love?
gosh.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I loved it. Like it's, I hate the heat. Like just, stick me in a hoodie every day the rest of my life. And I'm like, good.
Oh, maybe I'll switch
Yeah.
with you, because no, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
well, but listen, you have to suffer through like actual cold. Like
Yeah.
it gets cold here. And people get miserable for like a month, but nothing like New England. So
I know. There is nothing like it. Well,
yeah.
this, my audience knows, this is new for me, and newbie mistake. I actually bypassed your bio. And so, you know what I would love for you to do? Can
Listen,
you introduce yourself? What do you want people to know about you that maybe are like, who is
who's
Carlos
this guy?
Whittaker?
Who's this guy?
Yeah.
He's definitely not a hospitality educator. What is this dude? Like why is he talking to Katie? Right? Like what's happening? I'm a that's always the $1 million question when I'm sitting next to someone on an airplane and they're like, so what do you do? I never know what to say. I talk to my phone for a living. Like what do I say? But I think at the end of the day, I'm an author. I write books that and talk about them and tell stories about those books in different, whether I'm looking at my phone talking about it, I'm on a stage talking about it. I tell stories that hopefully lead people towards some semblance of freedom in some way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, like what I do is, I'm a storyteller, and I like to bring people stories that, like I said, move people towards action, move people towards freedom, move people towards change. And so, yeah, I happen to be in a season where I'm doing that through a book. But sometimes I'm in a season where I'm just speaking on stages or just making YouTube videos or podcasts or whatever it is. And so, and I'm also I'm a husband of 24 years to my beautiful wife, Heather. We have 3 incredible, beautiful children. They're not children anymore, but they're 18, 20, and 21. And yeah, we all live in Nashville, Tennessee. we're loving life. It's
Wow.
good. It's good.
You gave your bio much better than I could have
Oh,
delivered it. So thank you for that. It's so funny. So I have family members that have read your books and follow you and just
yeah.
admire you. But my husband knows you as the guys whose videos make me cry.
Right. No, totally, totally. There's a
Ex-
whole demographic of husbands that are like, "Oh, it's the crying guys video again."
no, no. So let me specify. So when
I
your
love it.
daughter was getting married, a
Yes.
month, how many months has it been?
That
2?
was May 26th.
Okay.
Yeah.
He would be like, "Hey, can you just turn the videos off?" Because he'd walk in and I would just be crying.
Totally. So,
I
well,
know.
I'm glad that other people were because I cried 24/7 for 4 straight days. And so, to know that my tears were at least being sympathized with on the other side of the country is great to know.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there were a few phrases that I would use to describe you for people that maybe know you or are going to start following. And I don't know. I think what you have created is very unique in this space. And so I just want to like affirm that and let our audience know kind of what you bring to the table. So
Mm.
I would call you a belonging curator,
Oh,
an authenticity modeler, a community enthusiast. And all of those things are things that we aspire for and like
oh,
work towards in making room. And I just think that you do that really beautifully. So I'm
wow.
excited to have you.
I'm putting that on my business card. I like those phrases. I didn't even have to pay you for a branding
Hey,
deal. You just pulled
no,
that
that's
off.
just my gift. That's my
Yes.
gift to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I love
belonging
that.
curator,
I love that.
authenticity modeler, and community enthusiast.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like though with this, people who live this out well have a story behind it. I think that people who love this intentionally, yeah, have been through something that kind
Yeah.
of
Sure.
sparked that intentionality. And
Yeah.
so I would love to hear from you. Like, how did you learn to love people and cultivate this like so well, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Gosh. Um, I think I learned it from maybe having to live through it. I I am so passionate about making sure everybody around me feels seen. And I'm talking about everybody. Like even
Yeah.
people that drive me crazy. Like I want them to feel seen as well because the reason why they're driving me crazy is probably because they want to be seen. And so when you see that suddenly behaviors shift and change and I think I if I go back to probably my childhood, I think a lot of it has to do with when, I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta, Georgia when I was I think in early elementary school and I had 2 Spanish speaking parents, one from Mexico, and then my father was a Afro Latino, a black man from Panama, and we moved to Atlanta in the 80s,
Mhm.
and my dad moved to a nicer neighborhood than we probably could have afforded, and not a single kid at my school looked like me, um, sounded like me, talked like me, and I just felt invisible. As visible as I was, I definitely felt invisible, and so, like, I think I had to fight for myself for a long time to be seen, um, and I don't want anybody to and there was a lot of behaviors that came out of me because of that, and like bad behaviors. And so I just am like, man, like I think that is the like a human's most core need is just to be seen. And so I think it was birthed out of my childhood. But of course, there's always moments throughout life where some more seasoning gets sprinkled on top of that, and the flavor changes a little bit. But now, like it really is. It's just like I can't help it. Like sometimes it's to a fault. I just want everybody around me to feel seen. And so I use my platforms and my books, hopefully, and whatever it is, to help people feel that. And
Yeah.
I do.
Wow. I knew there was a story,
There you
and I've
go.
read little bits through your
Uh,
books, that I don't
yeah.
wanna give away so that people
Yeah.
dive in, but it's powerful. It's powerful to hear kind of like beauty from ashes. It's powerful to hear, um, I don't know, that we don't have to kind of
Yeah.
like idolize, I guess, independence, that,
Right.
taking time to really see people
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, we
is
we we
yeah.
just feel like we're everyone right now, like there's this
Mhm.
cruel joke that society is playing on us that we don't need community, that we can just be
Yeah.
silos and solo and we can just do this on our own. And we can,
But we're suffering, right?
yeah, gosh,
Yeah.
we are it's the loneliest generation ever.
Mhm.
Like the generations that are alive right now are lonelier than any other generation in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
And, and we're more connected than we've ever been. So,
Totally.
go
So, yeah, it's
figure.
not because we're not together, it's because I
Right.
really think we're not seeing each other, and you
Yeah. Thank
model that
you.
so beautifully, because I think that's the question. People hear that and they're like, "Okay, cool, but how?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, wow, these are little nuggets." That's your platform, that's how I see it, little nuggets of how to
Oh,
see people, so
thank you.
it's good. Yeah, of course. Well, there is so much that I could think to talk through, but I really wanna hone in on your latest project and book, and
Yeah.
to kick us off, this is a very interesting niche project,
Yeah. Really is.
right?
Yeah.
And so I would love to step back, and you could be as honest or as vague, whatever, as
Yeah.
you wanna be. What made you think what was it that you were like, "No, no, no, this is it." Like,
Yeah.
this specific project and focus?
Yeah, 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 yeah. No one's asked me that. I like that question.
Mhm.
I'd written it up to this point, one, two, three, four books, five, five books that were um, all pretty much helping people on like a faith journey per se, or maybe just kind of to be a little better at being humans and all of these things. And I never really targeted, like you said, like a niche, like just a specific pain point, I think.
Mhm.
And it was I mean, these last 4 years of just the division and the rage and all the things that people are feeling every single day. um I think I can't remember when it was, but I think I remembered at one point realizing every single time I feel legitimate rage inside of me, it's coming from my phone. Like there's never rage that comes out of me when I'm sitting across the table from a friend, or when I'm, having conversation, even with someone I disagree with. Like rage never comes out of me. But why is it rage that's coming out of me when I'm holding my phone? And so I was like, wow, this is really making me angry. Then I got that screen time notification that comes across our screens on Sundays, right? That we all just ignore. Um,
Always when we're in church too, right?
Always, it's always when we're in church, and it's just like you've averaged this many, hours a week on your phone, or day on your phone. And it's funny because I got it once. So this was early 2022. I got this notification, and it said I'd average 7 hours and 23 minutes a day on my phone. And I remember, like, I always swipe it away, but for some reason I was like, I'm going to do the math. And the math equaled 49 hours a week. So 2 entire cycles of the sun I'm spending looking at my phone. So I was like, oh, that's gross, but let me keep doing the math. Then it said that math equals 3 months a year. 3 months a year that I'm looking at my phone. And then if I kept doing the math, and I plugged in 85, I was like, by the time I'm 85, I will spend over 10 years
Mm.
of my life looking at my phone. Now, let me tell you something. If Androids or iPhones sent you a notification that said that, I promise you it would be taken differently, right? Like if you got something that said, if you live to be 85, you will spend a decade of your life staring at this screen, I think there would be drastic changes, but that's not what they do. They tell you just your average daytime. So when I did the math, that's when, I'm if you've people followed me long enough, I just kind of, you know, go big or go home. And I was like, all these people everyone talks about how bad the phone is and how bad it is for us. And there's all these rules on how to not look at your screen and all these books about how bad it was. Like, but nobody's actually, at least that I know of, nobody had actually like done it. Like nobody had actually not looked at a screen. They've just told us to not look at screens. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I spent 7 weeks, so almost 2 months, and I never looked at I never consumed from a single screen, not an Apple Watch, an iPhone, a TV, a laptop, an iPad. I did not look at a screen. This is coming from a guy that makes his living talking to screens.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it for 7 weeks, and I got my brain scanned before, and I got my brain scanned after to see the difference. And in the middle of it, I spent a third of the time living with 20 Benedictine monks. I spent a third of the time living on an Amish farm, sheep farming farm in Mount Hope, Ohio, with a bunch of Amish farmers. And then I spent a third of it living with my family back here in the real world, quote unquote, where I still had no screen. And I ended up writing a book about it, and it changed everything. It changed. I think I may end up talking about this one
Yeah.
for the next 10 years. There's just so much that came out of these 7 weeks. Couldn't pack it into one book.
Wow.
But anyway, so now there's the pain point. Everybody feels it. Everybody has this love-hate relationship with their devices, with their screens, but everyone also knows like they're not going away. So how do
Mhm.
we do this well? And
Wow.
here we are.
Oh my goodness, there is a lot there. And I'm sure there's a bunch of questions that probably come up for people, but what did it look like for you? You know, like everyone sends invitations electronically. Did you feel like there was any missing out per se in that respect? Like what did that look like for you?
I mean, yeah, like not only miss I mean, I I legitimately didn't look at a screen. So like
Mhm.
even if I knew I was missing out on tons. I knew
Okay.
that there was a lot of identity that was like that I didn't know was baked into who I am on my phone and how people get a hold of me and what people think of me. And
Yeah.
so I there was a lot of FOMO, and most of that happened the first 4 days I was disconnected from my phone.
Mhm.
And because I legitimately was like it was like coming off of a drug. Like I was heart palpitations, dizziness, like there was
Wow.
night sweats, like physical manifestations of anxiety were occurring because I was no longer connected to this, looking at these devices, these screens. But then day 5, maybe day 4, it went from like I was stressed out, worried. What am I missing? What don't I know? I'm no longer in control, right? Like
Wow.
these devices give us this false sense of control, and that control is actually the illusion of control is I think is actually the drug that we're addicted to. We're not addicted to phones per se. The phone's not the problem. It's this false idea that we somehow have control because of them. And when I no longer had it, it was like a tailspin. But day 4 at the monastery felt like a elephant stepped off my chest. Like
Wow.
it suddenly, the first 4 days, this experiment was an experiment about a phone. It no longer after day 4 was an experiment about a phone. It went from why a phone is bad to why it's so beautiful on the other side. And that's what the book ended up being about. When people read the book, it's actually I give you no rules on
Mhm.
like don't look at your phone this time. Like it's not it's about this is actually what I fell in love with. Do you remember what it's like to do all these things? And hopefully that's what people are going to get out of it, is falling back in love with life the way
Yeah.
it was meant to be lived, and we just pick up our phone less.
Wow. It's so funny, random, but we were camping this last weekend, which all my listeners are probably like, "You what?" No, I'm kidding. But we were reminiscing around the fire, and I remember a second grade project with a teacher, called, like, a no TV week, and, our
Wow.
parents at the fire were like, "There's no way that could pass now."
Oh
You
yeah.
know, like, 20 something years later, there's no way, and I mean, but you
Yeah.
did it.
I
You
did
did
it.
it.
So
Yeah,
there is a way.
there
There
is a
there
way.
and you don't have to do it for 7 weeks, right? Like I
Yeah.
did it for you. So I tell everyone I went and lived with the monks and the Amish. I did it for you. Let me just tell you what I learned, and then
Wow.
you can start implementing some of these things.
Wow. Okay. Well, you break down some of your takeaways into a few key categories, and I would love to kind of like read you the category, and
Okay.
you tell us like what you want us to know about that part of your experience. If you
Wow.
want to skip to the next one,
Yeah.
say next. If you want to stay on one longer, just let me know.
Okay.
But the first one you called savoring,
Mm, yeah.
and so what was your what? Just dive into that for us.
Yeah, we it savoring is that see, these are all things that we were created to do as humans
Mhm.
that have literally been, they're on some of them are on the endangered list and some of them are on the extinct list. And if you look back, starting 60 years ago or so, it depends on which of these things we're talking about. That's just something that humans did innately. We savored things, but now like multitasking has become literally the worst thing to ever happen to humans, because when you multitask, you no longer can savor anything. And so when I was with the monks, it was 23 hours a day of silence. I didn't have a screen. I I had no, I talked to the lunch or to the monks at lunch, and then every once in a while I'd talk to them throughout the day if I'd bump into them. But for the most part, I was silent. And so savoring became something that I was like, I'd long for. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna savor this. And then as the days got grew, more and more, the longer I was there and the closer I got to the end, then really I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have this anymore. I'm not going to have the time with the monks. I'm not going to have these long walks, these all of these things that we that I never used to savor. You can savor anything, right? Like savoring is something that we really need to relearn how to do. And one of the things I talk about in the book is like, you can start to savor something before it happens. You can start to think about just the enjoyment of what it's going to be. You can savor something, obviously, after it's over. You can just let it keep going, keep thinking back to some of these cool experiences. But in the moment, savoring is always going to be just one thing that you do. So, for instance, when I was in Italy with my family, and we're on a road trip, I'll never forget stopping at a gas station in the middle of nowhere along this interstate, and I I stopped for gas, and Heather's like, "Hey, can you go in and get me a coffee?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want one too." So I went inside and I paid for the gas, and then I ordered a cappuccino. And I said, and she was making it. I noticed she was making it in a ceramic mug, and I was like, "No, can I take it to go?" And she's like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "Can I take it like in my car?" And she literally did not understand what I was talking about. And then I looked down kind of the little bar. This is in a gas station, and there was like 6 or 7 people just sitting there sipping their cappuccinos, sipping their espressos out of their little ceramic mugs. And it hit me like, if I don't have 3 minutes to stop and savor this espresso out of a ceramic mug, I am definitely moving too fast. Like that savoring, it's such a principle that it's so simple. So, one things I do now is like when I go to a coffee shop, I never get my coffee to go ever. It,
Love
I,
that.
I always ask for a ceramic mug. And here's the kicker. Most Starbucks actually have ceramic mugs there. They will make your drink in a ceramic mug. And listen, it's going to be 5 minutes and then it'll get cold. So go ahead and just stop and savor. And savoring, again, you have to practice it. You have to, if you start getting used to it, you have to go away from it for a little bit and come back to it, and you'll realize what it is again. And you walk into a bakery, you smell the bread, you're like, "Oh my gosh, it smells amazing." And then you order the bread, and then you're sitting there, you're eating the bread, it smelled amazing. But you realize
Yeah.
after 10 minutes of being in that bakery, someone else will walk in and go, "Oh, it smells amazing." But guess what? You've stopped smelling it. And so you get used to it. So what do you have to do? You have to walk back out, walk back in, and then your senses light up again. So savoring is definitely a principle in the book that I lean really far into, that I got to do with the monks and the Amish. And it's something that I still do today.
Yeah. I talk to my community a lot about making the switch from fast food to slow food. And I don't mean
Yes.
McDonald's. I just mean like
No.
fast table culture, fast
Yes.
eating.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of Americans go to Europe and they complain about the long meal times. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. But did you let yourself, like you're saying, I haven't used the word savor, but have you let yourself really savor it? Have you pressed in to experience it? Because I guarantee you, once you have, you won't want to go back.
No, you won't
Once
want
you
to go
see the
back.
richness, you won't want to go back.
You don't. And yes,
Mhm.
like it's again, it's one of those things that it tastes so good on the other side of the screen to slow down and savor,
Mhm.
that once you taste that, it overrides the dopamine that your screens are going to give you and the speed that
Wow.
life is going it. And so like you want that more. Once you taste the goodness on that side of it, you just are like, "Oh my gosh, I don't ever want to not savor again. I don't
Yeah.
ever want to not taste again. I don't ever want to speed through a meal." The
Yeah.
every meal I had with the monks and the Amish was over an hour. The Amish was definitely an hour and a half or longer. Breakfast, an hour and a half for breakfast before we'd hit the fields or go shear the sheep.
Wow.
The average American meal 100 years ago was 90 minutes long. The
Mhm.
average American meal in 2023 was 12 minutes long. So, it's exactly what you are talking about to your
Yeah.
community. 12
Mhm.
minutes, that's not a meal.
No.
That's not. And so we've lost so much because we've lost the table. And
Mm.
so yeah, so savoring even at our mealtime as a family, like we
Mhm.
initially, it was weird for the kids. Initially it was like, "Oh my gosh, like dad's gonna make us sit here, but I'm done eating." Yeah, you're done eating, but you're not done having a meal. The
Yeah.
meal isn't just eating, it's the conversation, it's and so
Mhm.
yeah, I love it. I love that that's something that you're about too.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good. I kind of have
Yeah.
lost sight of that word, but I love that word. I love that word
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
explaining all of
Definitely.
that. How about wonder? Wonder is a word I think we've really lost.
Yes.
Yeah, as
Yes.
Western adults.
You know, I think there's two, like there's two ways to talk about wonder. There's wonder as far as like awe and wonder,
Mhm.
which we've definitely lost because we're just not in awe of things anymore because everything is so accessible. And I think even, if I think about people that believe in God, like even their belief in God has lost a lot of their the wonder and awe because everything's packaged in podcasts and, sermons and whatever. But then also the wondering is gone. And that's probably the kicker for me that I realized has disappeared from culture and society. Whereas, when I grew up, I was in high school in the 90s. If I had a question about something, so like, for instance, I tell this story where I walked into I think it was Turtles Records and Music. It was like I'd go buy my CDs there. And I remember seeing like a big cutout of Mariah Carey, like her first record that she, and I remember walking and going, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen. And she had like her long, like flowing hair. And I'm like, I don't know if it was a sophomore in high school or whatever, but I was like, who is she? And I picked up her CD, and then I like back in the day, you had to like put the demo CD in the CD player and like listen to it. And then like, I was like, who is this? And again, I didn't have a device to go Google it. So then I walked up to the front and I was like, I want to buy this. Can you tell me who it is? No, we just got the CD in yesterday. So then I had to go home and I just wondered, who is this person? And I wondered for weeks until on MTV, like 3 weeks later, there was like a 10-minute interview. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I like watched this interview and I got 10 more minutes of information on who Mariah Carey was. But then I had to keep wondering. And I tell that story because I'm like, that is gone. Literally, that is extinct. We no longer, the closest thing we get to wondering is saying the words, I wonder. Then the second somebody says the words, I wonder, we pull out the wonder killer, our screens, and we literally destroy wonder. When I was on these 7 weeks, the amount of wondering I did, like I was like, man, it was like day 2. And I was like, I wonder why these monks pray 6 times a day for 30 minutes at a time. And I remember reaching into my phone to kill my wonder. And I was like, oh, in my pocket to grab my phone. And there was no phone. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to wonder. And I really think that creativity and all sorts of things that come out of the wondering have been demolished. The amount of ideas that, have been bred out of boredom and wondering, when I was researching for the book, the Frisbee was invented literally by a couple that was on a date and they were bored. And because they were bored and they were just talking and wondering, like he flipped over a pan or something and threw it. And he was like, and like, so the Frisbee came out of wondering, like all of these things come out of wondering, but in our companies and in our cultures and in our families, we've killed wondering. And so I often think, what ideas have been killed because wondering is no longer there anymore? And so, yeah, I'm like if anyone says, I wonder around me, I'm like immediately when they reach for their phone, nope, we're just going to wonder. We're not going to find out the answer. We know too much. It's okay to not know. I spent 7 weeks. I didn't know what was happening anywhere besides the 200 yards around me. And guess what? Those 200 yards around me provided me with more than enough things to care and be concerned about and pour into. And so again, I'll just say it. I wonder if we just even know too much now because wondering is no longer there. So I think wondering is something that we were created to do that is now officially been extinct and people don't wonder anymore. And so, we're going to have to get it back when we're going to have to do it on purpose.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I think we've like idolized knowledge so much.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the reason why we idolize it is, again, it goes back to us feeling like we're in control. And when knowledge leads to control, and then control, a false sense of control. And then when all of that is stripped and taken away, it's actually the biggest breath of fresh air. I've got my kids drive and, Life 360, especially when I did this experiment a few years ago, all the kids were living at my house. They're all driving. We have Life 360 to make sure if they get in a crash, it'll notify us or whatever. But little did I know that app was actually causing me more anxiety because I knew too much. Like my mom's like, Carlos, like if I knew where you were and how fast you were going all the time, I would have been so stressed out when I was raising. I'm so grateful that didn't exist. So again, and that's just more control. That's more knowledge. And we just weren't created to know as much as we know.
So funny. My husband's the best guy, super loyal, super focused and present wherever he is. So when he's at work, doesn't look at his phone. So if I don't hear from him, I look at Find Friends.
Yeah, there you go. Listen.
Then sometimes it shows him like in the middle of the ocean. I'm like,
Wait,
Like,
why is
are
he there?
you alive?
Yeah. Why is he in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
I'll do the same thing with my wife if she's if she's on a hike somewhere or something and then
Yeah,
there's no cell service, it shows like she's 2 hours away and I'm like, she get kidnapped? Like again, it's
totally.
creating things that we maybe we're just not supposed to know.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny as you're saying this, and it's kinda sad to admit it, my husband would be, like, elbowing me if he was listening to this. My goal for the year, I kid you not, was if I said I wonder something, I have to look it up to find the answer.
Wow.
Isn't that sad
Wow.
though?
Wow. So okay, so cool. So you get to fix that. You get to fix that because finding
Yeah.
the answer isn't bad. Okay. And
Yep.
I want people to know, like, I believe
Yeah.
it's great that we can find out the answer so quickly, but sit in the wonder longer.
So
So
good.
that's just it. It's not like don't find the answer out anymore. It's just like
Right.
if you wonder something, can I tell you the amount of incredible ideas that are going to come out of you if you actually stay in wondering for longer than, however long we normally do? And then, yeah, and then we can go find out. But it's so funny because my son, he gets on me all the time. It's been 2 years since I've done this experiment.
Mhm.
And if I say I wonder, and sometimes I'll say, God, I wonder what, and I'll pull my phone out. He's like, hey, Dad, stop. I just want you to wonder. Just wonder. Don't find the answer. And I'm like, oh, so yes, no, it's extinct, but it's one of those things that I think we can get back.
Yeah. Oof. I
Yeah.
love that one. I think that's gonna challenge a lot of us.
Good.
Okay, getting lost. I don't
Yes.
love this one. I'm kidding.
Yes. Getting lost.
Convincing.
Let me tell you again, when I was at the monastery, I couldn't really get lost because it was like I was like on a small, tiny college campus, right? The Abbey grounds. I'd gone everywhere. I knew my way around. But when I went to the Amish, and I had a little e-bike that they let me borrow to ride around, and I'm with my little Amish hat and my little vest riding around Amish country, this tattooed black guy that is like going like I didn't belong, right? One of these things doesn't belong here. And I'm riding around and Willis would be, I'll never forget one time he's like, hey Carlos, I need you to head to the feed store to go pick up this part for my tractor. And so then literally in the same breath, he's like, so you're going to head down Highway 216 and you're going to take a right at the second stop sign. And then you're going to go past the Miller farm or the Smith farm. And then I want you to take a left and then you're going to go up the hill down probably about a mile. And then you're going to take the next right. And so he's just telling me this, like as if I could just remember. Right. And so when he was done, I started laughing. I was like, hey, I'm going to need you to tell me that again. Cause I'm going to need to write it down. He's like, you don't need to write this down. You can remember. He's like, and he told me again. So I was like, okay, I'm challenged. So I get on my little e-bike. I make it like one turn and I'm gone. Like the directions are gone. They're gone from my head. So then I had to stop and there was this Amish lady mowing her grass. I was like, excuse me, kind of wave her down. And she's like, are you over at the Miller farm? It's like everyone knew that this dude that looked like me was living around there. I was like, yeah, I'm Willis's friend. I'm trying to find the feed store. Oh, you missed your turn. So you got to go back that way and then this way. But I made this new friend right when I got lost. And then like I'm going so slow on this, e-bike that like I'm taking in the beauty of the surroundings around me and I'm getting lost and I'm finding my way and then I'm asking somebody else and I finally get to the feed store. It's supposed to take 15 minutes. Maybe it took me an hour. And I get there and I get the part. And now it's almost like a game. I'm like, okay, can I do this backwards? Can I get there? And I make it back. But that actually showed me that we as humans have something intrinsically inside of us that we've killed. This intrinsic sense of direction. Literally, I think God created us with a sense of being able to find our way somewhere. And it's gone. Literally, it's another thing that is gone. Siri tells us 900 feet, 700 feet, 400 feet, turn here, right? And we turn, and so we've lost it. And there's been studies done by cab drivers in Europe that show that the cab drivers that do not use GPS, their brains are more alive and sparking than cab drivers that use GPS. And so
Wow.
I say it all the time. It's not just with directions to places. I think that we were created to get lost and find our way. And I just feel like there's a lot of people, even in their lives, that can't find their way anymore because they're relying on external factors to tell them where it is to go. They're relying on other people's opinions to tell them, when I'm like, no, it's in us. We can find our way. So whether that's with a map or whether that's in life with life, lessons in general,
Wow.
I think that that's something that has also been lost. So since this experiment, I legitimately have no longer use Apple Maps, Google Maps to go anywhere. So if I'm going somewhere, I don't know where to go, I look it up before I leave on my computer and I write it on a napkin or wherever it is. and I just take it with me, and I slowly find my way. And guess what? I may end up in 8 more minutes of traffic because maps didn't tell me that to avoid this. 8 minutes? Are you kidding me? Like, we are now killing brain cells to save 8 minutes in traffic. And so, yeah, so that's something that I have implemented in my life as well. And guess what? I've gotten lost, all of these things, but it's been way better because it's just more human.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again,
Goodness.
I don't mean for this whole
Yeah.
interview to just be like this convicting thing or whatever.
No,
But again, I want people to remember and realize how good it is on the other side. Like, how good it tastes so good to get lost and find your way. It tastes so good to savor. And when you start doing these things, you are going to realize, oh, I've been missing a lot.
I think if anything, people are hearing this and they're like, "Oh wow, that speaks to this pain point that I've
Yes.
had." Or,
Yes.
it's like the picking and choosing. So I think there's something in this for everyone, and I think that's really good. I remember when we lived in Asia for a while, we had no choice but to get lost. We had no idea. We couldn't even read at the beginning.
Yeah.
So we were lost all the time.
Yeah.
And that's when we found the best restaurants, the best alleys, like all of those things,
Yes.
the hidden wonders, all of those things.
Yes.
So I have not been as good at that since we've moved back, but,
Sure.
I could see it.
Yeah,
I
give
could
it a
see it.
shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
I tell people in the book, I think I say 1 drive a week. No
Oh,
maps. Just start 1 drive a week, no maps. Look
okay.
it up before you go, and just slowly make your way there. So,
I ran into a mom. I was trying to think as you were talking where I met her, and she said, I think it was every summer. She had one child, and it
mm,
was called their Get Lost trip. And
yes.
the kid would say, "Go north or go south, go left
Yes.
or go right." And she would put a time limit on it, and at a certain point, they would find a hotel, but they would get lost together. And
Yes.
my first reaction was like stress. I was like,
Right.
"Where are you gonna end up?" But
Yes.
it's been
No.
like, I don't know, like a core memory, a core, like, I don't
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
break of their
Well,
relationship,
you
yeah.
that reminds me, I'm actually glad that you mentioned that because I need to bring this into more of these conversations I'm having now. Because when our kids were, we homeschooled our kids, and when they were like 8, 10, and 12, my wife would do this thing. I forgot she did it, where she would get a jar and she'd get dice, and the kids would like roll the dice, and if it landed on like 37, it's like, okay, we're going to drive 37 miles. Then they would pull out of the jar north, south, east, or west, and then south. And we go 37 miles south. Then it was like 3 questions, or no, it was like either food, fun, or something else that when we get there, we were either going to have fun, do food. And so we would do this. This was something that we would do as a family. And yeah, so we would basically get lost and, just kind of, go with the flow. So,
Wow. I love that, and as I'm hearing that, there has to be a level of trust that we don't have in our culture right now. I feel like
right.
we've
Yeah.
lost, like, trust of new places, new cities, new
Oh,
cultures,
Oh
right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was on another podcast. It's called 1,000 Hours Outside.
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about how a kid spends, I think, 6 to 8 minutes a day outside, but they spend like 4 to 6 hours a day on a screen. And literally 6 to 8 minutes like of playtime outside, right? Not walking the car, but like a playtime. And I put that somewhere. I can't remember. It was somewhere, and I put it online like that. And a few people said, "Yeah, but it's so dangerous outside now," And so I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, we literally have been tricked to believe that we can't even let our kids play outside because of some danger that is lurking in our streets and And so again, yes, be smart. We have more opportunities but I just think we have more access to information that probably was the same data and information back then that they just didn't have access to. And so I don't know. I just would rather live life as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
what is the Braveheart thing he says? Every man will die, not every man will truly live. And I'm like, let's get out there and go. So
So good. That's
yeah,
really good.
yeah,
There's a lot of truth on the other side of fear, right?
yeah, there is.
Okay, we are getting to the end, but how about solitude? Solitude and slowing down. You could take those separate, lump them together, however you
Yeah.
wanna dive into them.
Yeah. Well, solitude again. Um, grow the first generation to have the ability to not have solitude every day. So up until I think I read that the car radio was first put into cars on a regular basis in the 1930s, and up until then, every single person, no matter what, every single day had to have solitude. It was something that was built into our lives. But since the radio was put in, suddenly like solitude became less and less. It was definitely more in the 1930s than it is now. But now it's gone. I mean, it is completely eradicated. And so 7 weeks, especially at the monastery, 23 hours a day, can I tell you the solitude that I had? And I was scared of it, obviously at the beginning. But then I ended up, especially when I got to the Amish, because the monks and the Amish, it was like moving from a cave to Manhattan. Like the Amish went hard. Like they were like visiting and meals and go, 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 go. And I missed the solitude that I had at the monastery. And so that's something that I think we need to re-implement back into our lives. Solitude is not the same as loneliness, right? So like you can even be around people and still find solitude. And I think solitude is important for us to seek after because it slows us down. I have a whole chapter on Godspeed, how the average human being walks at 3 miles an hour. And so what I did was I was like, well, that's how fast God created us to move. What else in my life can I slow down to 3 miles an hour? What else in my life can I walk at God's speed in? And so, yeah, everything's just getting faster and faster and faster. People are saying, oh my gosh, life is flying by. And I'm like, no, life is moving the same. Like 24 hours is still 24 hours. We're actually flying by life. So what can we actually do to slow down? Like that's something that people don't ask anymore. It's like, we're always asking, how can we do things faster? I'm thinking, man, maybe the way to catch back up with life is by slowing down. So what are things that we can pull away? So yeah, even that Godspeed, 3 miles an hour, solitude, those are all things that I unpack in the book that I do feel like are not only necessary, but they're impacting our mental health because the speed that we're moving, all of these things. And listen, I'm about to go on book tour. I'm going to be home 6 days in September, 4 days in October. I'm going hard. Like I'm like, but here's the cool thing. And hopefully I'll be able to show this on Instagram, is that I can still apply all of these practices in my life while I'm traveling, while I'm working, while I'm Instagramming. Again, people are like, well, how can you write a book about screens when you're on Instagram? Because the book isn't about how bad screens are. The book is about how beautiful it is on the other side. You start implementing those things and you pick up your screen less. I'm on my phone 3 hours a day now. I used to be 7.5 hours a day. I've literally gained half of my life back. So, what my challenge for your listeners is, how can you, again, 49 hours a week is the average, because I'm average for an American. I'm literally, my 7.5 hours a week is average. A day is average. That's 49 hours a week. Can you get 10 hours back of your life of living by cutting that off of your screen time?
Goodness.
Yeah.
There is a lot there, a lot of thoughts, but I am looking at the time. We are chatting, having a great conversation. I want to respect your time, the listeners' time too, but I don't want to leave this out. So I know that brain health is something that you're passionate about,
yes,
especially with the scans of this experience. Yeah. What do you refer to it as, an experiment or experience?
Oh, well, it's definitely more an experience, but in the book, it's called an experiment, even though it's not a scientific experiment, because I was the only data point, right? So it's not like there was 100 of us. It was just me. So who knows if it was, Dr. Amen, when he scanned my brain at the end and we saw a difference in my brain, he's like, who knows if this was praying with the monks 6 times a day, working in the fields with the Amish, or not looking at your screen. All we know is whatever you did in your 7 weeks healed your brain. And so, I'm like, well, more of that and less of how I was living before.
Wow. So much respect for Dr. Amen. I didn't know that he was the one that did the scans, but I love his work.
Yes. And my brain scans are released on his show, Scan My Brain. Both of them will be on his YouTube channel so people can watch them.
Oh, wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for people that are maybe at the very beginning of learning about brain health, I'll say I am kind of like your typical crunchy mama who loves all the natural things, but I am at the very beginning of learning about brain health. I think a lot of our listeners probably are too.
Yeah.
What would you say is a great starting point? Kind of like brain health 101.
Yeah. I think that for me, so I have a father with dementia, and brain health is just a big thing for me. And so the beginning for me was going to Dr. Amen and scanning my brain, getting the SPECT scan and asking him the questions like, okay, so what can I do to make sure I can not be living the way my father is living at 82 years old? Like, how can I, and I think for me, definitely like Dr. Amen's books. Okay. He's a big part of my book, but his books, have been transformative to brain health for me. But what probably the biggest thing that I've realized from all of my studies, even what he said, is that it is 1000% what you put in your mouth. Like it is 1000% what you put in your mouth. You want a better brain, you have to change how you eat. And so, I've done a big shift in my diet the last few years. And I've seen it change my clarity, all of these things. And so I'm actually going to get another SPECT scan for Dr. Amen, because I want to see what it looks like 2 years after I've changed my habits, but I'm back on my phone, all these things. And so, yeah, I'd read his books, listen to his podcasts, and start studying. He's got I can't remember what it's called. He's got a book
Is it
about
something happy? Something?
yeah, but he's got a book specifically about eating, like diet
Okay.
and your brain. And that just, I mean, it's what you put in your mouth. You start looking at all the data coming out on dementia, and more and more and more, it's what you eat. And so,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's good that you're crunchy. So, keep putting the crunchy stuff into your mouth.
That's so funny. I just did a
Yeah.
quick Google scan or Google search.
Yeah.
Wonder, but
Well, see, this is where it would be good. So,
hey, I know. But no, he has so many books. I can't quickly see which one is
yeah.
the
But there's one
dietary
about
one, but
eating. Yeah.
okay,
So you can put it in the
great.
show notes or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. That sounds great. Last question for you.
Yeah.
Last main question. So you obviously are a big thinker, visionary, dreamer. You are on the cusp of developing your documentary to support this book,
Yes.
which we are very excited about. You're welcome to chat about that. But I'm curious if you could develop, if the sky was the limit, there were no obstacles, you look towards the future. What would your biggest aspiration be? I guess what's next for Carlos Whittaker?
Oh, wow, Katie.
Hmm.
What a question. Um,
And if it's the documentary, that's fine too.
no, it's definitely not the dark. I mean that's been fun to create. That's been fun to I've written a lot of books and launched a lot of books. I've never made a movie and launched. So there's a big learning curve. I'm a very curious person. I'm a learner. I'm going to be a lifelong learner. Every year I choose something else new to learn and be bad at and figure out how to do. And so but I do feel like especially in the next decade of my life, I just turned 50. And so I'm like, okay, like my 50s, according to data, are going to be the most influential years of my life. They just kind of get more influential and influential. And so I'm like, I just want to make sure that I'm influencing people. I'm wearing this shirt right now that says, "Don't stand on issues, walk with people." I just feel like if I could create something that helps the silent majority of people that actually believe this, right? Because there's most people that say anything out loud on the internet are going to be the loudest edges of the extremes. But I'm trying to help people realize, no, listen, like most of us are actually in this for the same thing. If I could create some sort of event, some sort of product that really helps people move back towards this place, I just think the world's going to be a better place. And so, yeah, I've got dreams and ideas in 2025 of some gatherings that I'm going to have at a few different places, and creating what those are going to look like. Yeah, I'm freaking pumped. So I'm excited about kind of turning a corner in what I do to maybe provide some in-person things for some people.
Goodness. Well, we
Yeah.
are excited with you. 3 flash questions to end the
Yep.
conversation, and then we'll send people to your book. The first one, we ask all of our guests these questions.
Okay.
What is something you have eaten recently and loved?
Oh, um, I'm going to say my wife made these tacos called pasole,
Hmm.
and she made them in like a little bit. She's made them before. She made them in a little different way. To like, I love like a wet corn tortilla taco that falls apart because it's soaking wet with stuff like that. So
Oh,
anyway, she made a brand new version of her homemade pasole, and it was chef's kiss. It's
oh,
beautiful.
so good.
Yeah.
So good. A gathering you attended that made you feel a strong sense of belonging. And if you could pinpoint it, what it
Oh.
was that made you feel that way.
Oh wow. Um. Okay. So you can listen to a podcast on this. Okay. So again, I have my "Don't Stand on Issues, Walk with People" shirt on because I try to walk with people of differing perspectives. And in the last 3 weeks, I did two things that made me feel the same at both places. Okay. I went to the DNC in Chicago, And the next week, I went to a Trump rally. And so this is what I did. I went to both places. And can I tell you, the sense of belonging that people had in both spaces were the exact I like you could feel the same palpable energy in both spaces. And there's a reason why people gather in those places, because those are things that people want to experience. Now, the both of them were inspiring, but both of them also made me very sad, right? Because I'm the guy that also is like, politics isn't going to fix us. But I did that up for a reason, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to feel exactly what you are asking. And I just feel like if we can, this is why I'm thinking about this gathering. That's not a political gathering. It's a gathering of people that don't want to stand on issues but walk with people. Both of those things actually inspired me to dig even deeper into how can I create a space where people from both sides of the aisle, people that are Christians, non-Christians, atheists, all come together, um, because we actually all have 17 of the 20 things that we're passionate and we believe about are actually the same thing. There's 3 things that we may differ with, but anyway, there's probably a lot longer answer to the question that you wanted,
No,
but that
that's
was
great.
actually it was really moving for me to go to attend those things.
I don't know that I've heard anyone else that has gone to both. I've
Yeah,
definitely heard of people that have gone to the DNC or the
or
Republican
the RNC. Yeah,
RNC, yeah,
yeah.
but not both. And so I
I
give you a
wasn't
lot of
invited
credit.
to the RNC. I was invited to the DNC, which is why I went. I bought a last second ticket. But
Mhm.
then I was like, well, I want to taste this from people that don't believe what people in this room
Yeah.
are. And so I kind of want to. And honestly, when I was there, like it felt this. Everyone was excited and pumped about their thing. And so it was pretty inspiring.
Wow. Okay. And last
Yeah.
but not least, what is one thing you've discovered recently that you think everyone should know about? Amazon purchase, Netflix show,
Yes, please don't cancel me when I show you this. It's sitting right here. This is the
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 salt
bug
thing.
assault, the bug assault. And so like we have had so many freaking flies in our house that I bought this fly shotgun that you put salt in, and that's how I kill my flies now. People use fly swatters, but for some reason,
Yeah.
because this is a weapon, they may get triggered. But I love my little bug assault. I've been going crazy all over the house with it.
You and Colby would be fast friends. Colby
Yes.
has that.
Does
Colby
he
has
really?
one. Yeah, yeah.
It's awesome.
Just so people know watching, it shoots salt at the bugs and it's
Yes,
very
it's
accurate.
and a fly. So literally,
Yeah.
it's so accurate. You could be 10 feet away and you could like wax that fly in no time. So it's pretty
Oh,
cool.
I love it. Well, this has been so rich. We could
Oh,
have
so
we could have
good.
stayed here so much longer, but where do you want to send people to keep following along?
Yes. So Instagram's kind of where I hang out at Loswhit, LOSWHIT. Come on over,
Mhm.
hang out with us. It's a safe place that you can come with varying opinions and ideas, and we're one big happy messy family there. And then for the book, if
Yeah.
you go to reconnectedbook.com, you can get there's a couple things that even after the book is
Mhm.
out, you can oh look, you got it right there.
There it is. Yeah.
You can continue to you can still get 10 minutes of the documentary and a couple of the journaling guide, a couple of the things you can get at that website.
So good. We'll tag this all in the show notes, guys.
Woo!
Thanks so much for hanging out, and we will see you next week.